And I think one of the really interesting developments in this particular victory, which I think we haven't seen previously, is the really broad cultural coalition that Trump built. It wasn't just this class realignment, working class people massively shifting over, the blue collar vote really backing the Republican Party in a way we've never seen before, Latinos and so on, as we've discussed. But it's also the cultural phenomenon, the way that you've seen these really big, folk heroes, actually, the coalition that Trump built, whether that's Joe Rogan on the eve of the election endorsing Trump, Elon Musk, of course. There's a whole bunch of figures. I think it was really interesting the way that RFK Jr. and a whole bunch of people associated with him was so important in the Trump campaign. It's a really interesting and broad movement that says, look, we can see that these far left policies have totally failed. We can see that Kamala Harris is basically a fake candidate. She won't tell you what she thinks about anything, won't answer direct questions. Her speeches read as if they're written by ChatGPT. It's just a string of platitudes. We're not falling for it. We want the policies that delivered peace and prosperity, rising incomes, in particular for working class people, no new wars that America got into, China and Putin and the Middle East relatively peaceful when Trump was president compared to the chaos we've seen in the last 4 years. So in the end, the real beauty of it is that the facts and the substance and the reality won out over the BS and the propaganda.
How do you think it plays out in the coming weeks, or days, weeks, and months? Will he be accepted by the left as a legitimate winner, regardless? They're going to carry on fighting. Nothing's going to change. This country's so polarized that, if anything, half the country still don't like the guy. I mean, how do you fix it?
Well, first of all, wouldn't it be hilarious if the people who endlessly lecture everyone about protecting our democracy, the endless pomposity from the Democrats, if they're the ones that now start challenging the results? I don't think they will. I think it's a big enough victory. Look, it's still, I mean, I'm here in the Fox News West Coast Bureau in Los Angeles. We're about to go on with, I'm just looking at the results. There's still, we haven't had the official results, but it's looking like a very comprehensive win for Trump. And also, if you look at some of the other results, the control of the Senate, the Republicans doing better there than was expected, really getting the kind of high end, reaching the high end of the expectations there. So it's a pretty comprehensive, looks like it's turning into a pretty comprehensive win. Even here in California, what's interesting, look, it's a very democratic state in terms of the kind of the highlights of the election. It's already been declared for Kamala Harris. But if you look underneath that, you've got ballot initiatives on specific issues like crime and taxes and the minimum wage, where it looks like California is going to vote against the left-wing position and vote in favor of common sense Republican ideas on taxes and crime and the economy. So I think this really is a big message. If the Democratic Party has the sense to hear this message and say, look, it's obvious that we've gone too far to the left and we need to come back to the middle and we need a stronger candidate. If they take those lessons, then that would be the right way for them to react to this rather than trying to challenge it.
You don't sound very optimistic they'll be doing that. How is it down there in California? There are all sorts of rumors that you might throw your hat in the ring at some point.
Well, I'm looking at it. That's true. Look, it's very clear that this state needs big change, right? If you look at the performance of California compared to the rest of the country on every single indicator that matters, we're not just doing worse, we're doing the worst. We have the highest taxes in America. We have the highest rate of poverty. We have the highest unemployment. Now we're second highest. We have the highest housing cost, the lowest home ownership, the highest gas prices, the highest utility bills, everything you look at. We have the worst business climate in America 10 years in a row. So really, California has been the laboratory. I sometimes describe it as the Wuhan lab of far left extremism. And it's just, the results are in, right? They've been running this place unchallenged. It's been one party rule. They've had control of every level of government, and the results have been a complete disaster on every single front. It's a failure on every front. So it's beyond time for change in California. So, I've been involved on a policy level, trying to put out some ideas that can get broad support, and we'll see what that means politically. But we have big elections here in California in 2 years' time, and we'll see. I may well be involved in that.
Fascinating. Just one final question. There couldn't be a bigger in tray for the incoming president, from the Middle East to the situation in Ukraine, Putin, China eyeing up Taiwan. Is Donald Trump really the man to solve these issues? You're going to have European capitals in meltdown this morning at the prospect of him coming back and making them open their checkbooks for NATO membership. Are you worried at all that, he's bitten off more than he can chew here?
Well, again, you've got to look at the results rather than the spin and the propaganda. The last time he was there, you didn't have Putin invading other countries. You didn't have Iran financed and emboldened and financing all the terror that you've seen both on October the 7th and subsequently with Hezbollah and so on and the Houthis. So, and China wasn't nearly as aggressive in the South China Sea, threatening and menacing Taiwan. So the message that Donald Trump has projected so clearly in this campaign is that we need to get back to the idea of deterrence. And this very simple phrase that actually Reagan used as well, peace through strength. That was the idea when Trump was there before. And the allies in Europe and elsewhere, if they have any sense, will realize that actually, if this result that we're looking at tonight is the final result, that's actually going to be good for their interests.
He's going to have to do something, though. You're talking about deterrent. He's going to have to show that there's a new sheriff in town. I wouldn't want to be a Mad Muller sitting in Tehran right now with him. Well,
the Iranian regime. Well, that's exactly why we've been hearing about Iranian hit squads in America trying to take Donald Trump out. I mean, there's probably no single regime. I mean, you're quite right to bring it up. There's no single regime anywhere in the world that is more directly threatened by Donald Trump than, and if he's the next president, than the genocidal maniacs who are currently running Iran. And so I think, and funding terror across the region. And so I think that's exactly right. That's probably priority number one in terms of the foreign policy situation. Of course, he said that he's going to be able to sort out the Ukraine conflict very quickly as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, the first line of an art of a deal is got to negotiate from a position of strength. So hopefully that won't mean pulling the plug on Ukraine when just when they need it the most. Do you think do you believe the hype that he's going to spend the first 6 months of his presidency essentially opening himself to allegations of being soft on Putin again?
No, it's the opposite. And actually, look at the record. I mean, he was the one that actually he's the one after Obama and Biden, when they were in the White House for those 8 years, refused to send arms to Ukraine. It was Trump that made that possible. If Trump hadn't made that decision, Ukraine wouldn't have been able to resist in the early days of the invasion. Trump did that, not the Democrats. Similarly, with the Nord Stream pipeline, it was Trump that put sanctions on that to stop Russia being able to finance its war machine. And it was Biden who took the sanctions off. So again, all this talk about is propaganda. If you actually look at the facts and the results and the reality, that Putin knew where he stood with Trump and didn't try it on. And actually, Trump made the argument very forcefully to Angela Merkel and to the rest of the Europeans. What are you doing? Why are you doing business with Russia and buying their gas and doing this pipeline? You have the former Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder on the board of Gazprom and so on. I mean, it's just a ridiculous. It's the opposite of the truth. And I think that, again, what you'll see is foreign adversaries respecting a strong leader in the White House, which we haven't had, sadly, for the last 4 years.